So welcome to this late live. Technical problems. We've put some more coal in the laptop. It's not bad for coal. And we're going to talk about, what we're going to talk about, Alice? We're going to talk about the 5 love languages with an emphasis on, while you're down there, acts of service, I think was going to be the subtext. But before we go into...
Down, in or out? Oh, I didn't mean that. It's your influence.
I know. My influence is going to get us in trouble. But before we start, Alice, you're the expert here. So tell us what the 5 love languages are all about, because I've forgotten all of them.
Which I don't believe, because I believe you're an expert now too. But the 5 love languages are a way of showing love. Why they are important is because at times we don't communicate our love language to be received properly by our partner, and that is because our love languages may be very different. So the love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, physical touch, and the last one, do you know it?
Quality time.
Yes.
I'm learning.
That was a test.
Yes.
But we did it. So today we're going to do acts of service, which I know that you find amusing, but actually cover massive range. Essentially, it's actions speaking louder than words.
Can't argue with that, can you?
No. So it's someone feeling that love, that they want to receive love in the form of doing things.
Why do I find that amusing? I don't
know. Why do you find it amusing?
I don't know. Why do I find that amusing? So what sort of things would they perhaps do for their partner to show love?
So typical things that people can do: cook a meal, plan a day out. It could be taking someone to the airport, doing chores, and this one's one that we'll come into later that comes under a little bit of criticism, but essentially kind of the dialects that we're going to look at are the thought, planning, time, effort and energy. And the time and effort really comes into quality time, so we're not going to go over that too much. But the differences in quality time are the ones that, not quality time, acts of service, are the things that take time and planning and the things that don't. Okay.
So some examples would be?
So the things that take time: preparing a meal, cooking it, and thinking about, I really know that my husband or wife or girlfriend and boyfriend or they may really like this Lebanese dish. I'm going to go and get everything and cook that for them. It might not necessarily be your dish of choice, but it's your partner's. And that's something, if that is their love language, that will mean a lot more than saying, I think you look great, or touching their arm, or another love language.
Yeah, and that's probably why wives used to cook dinner all the time in the good old days, and they don't do it so much now, do they? But they used to be probably one of the ways of showing that they cared, not just about the husband, but about the family as well.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, because we're talking about the traditional kind of stereotypes of people, which, yes, that was... women traditionally would cook while the men go to work, and for some people they will remember that their mother and father did that and take that on. This was the role of the wife in my family, and she cared for all of us children by cooking a lot. So quite often our actions are modeled by our caregivers. That doesn't mean to say that that's going to be your partners, or that these traditional, our traditional upbringings are necessarily what equality means now.
Equality, oh yeah, very much into equality, but it doesn't have to be. Equality doesn't have to be exactly the same, does it? You can still be different and be equal but different. Celebrate the difference.
Celebrate the differences, absolutely. But
Yeah,
it also doesn't mean that just because, say, a man's love language is acts of service and their partner's isn't, that it's sort of, well, you've got to go and cook the dinner now because that's what my parents did at home. That could also be very catastrophic to a relationship, especially a woman that is out working and wants to be independent and hates cooking.
yeah. And on the flip side, some blokes like cooking. I love cooking. I'm not particularly good at it, but I wouldn't want to go back to just having to rely on my partner to cook, because that means if they dump me or die, I'll starve. And it's a good set of skills to have, isn't it?
It definitely is self-sufficient skill to have. Or you could just use a microwave.
Well, there's an anecdote there. My parents know a gentleman who unfortunately lost his wife. Not mislaid her, I mean, actually lost her to COVID. And he can't even use the microwave. So, and he's not a stupid man by any means, like engineer, but can't use the microwave. And part of it is probably, psychological. There's a feeling of that's what she used to do for me, and therefore, that was her representation of her love. And it almost feels wrong to step into her place and take over that role. I mean, it's difficult to understand, I think, but
I think that's quite complex, actually. And if it is the way that he received love from his partner, then that is difficult for him, and it's part of the kind of attachment and mourning process. But also there's another side of things where, not using the example of someone's wife dying, but maybe they should learn. Is that just laziness? And that is what this love language gets criticised for. If someone, and there's quite a good study that American psychologists did recently about looking out for people's love language who is acts of service. Now, they may really find appreciation from their partner when they do the bins for them, when they clean for them, when, I don't know, they do that really awful task of looking at the toilet or something. However, we're
going to talk about sex in a bit, aren't we? Yeah. Stay tuned, viewers.
We're going to later. Yeah. But we also need to be careful that those people that do hold that as a love language aren't really raising their expectations and it's becoming a nag, because then you're coming into the kind of manipulation realm and I need this to feel love. So there has to also be a balance.
Yeah, because I think I know quite a lot of blokes whose love language is acts of laziness.
Acts of laziness. What? Just do everything for me.
Yeah, just look after me like my mum used to. Then I'll know that you love me.
Yeah, and I suppose if that is what they grew up seeing, that could be their love language. There is the other flip side to finding out that isn't a love language and they're just damn right lazy. But if it is, then we have to be like this study did show, hang on a minute, what's really important to me if I was the person who held the love language of acts of service? What's really important to me, or what am I just wanting someone else to do? Where are the realistic expectations?
Yeah, it's all about communication, isn't it? And setting expectations. Otherwise, you're kind of walking around in the dark, bumping into things. And that's why I think this love language stuff is so important, because, until, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, I had no conception of this. So I'm assuming that it isn't general knowledge. Therefore, people should put some time in.
When you break it down, it feels really simple, but it's not. So when we give tips, and we said, like on our other 2 lives, how do we know that what my partner's love language is? And I'd say listen to their criticisms. and then ask them, why is this so important to you? You keep nagging me to do the washing. And work out, again, communicate, is this something that makes them feel that you're part of a team, or are they just trying to make you do everything in the house? But if it's that feeling of actually you taking some of the load and doing some of the chores means that we're operating as a team, then their love language is going to be acts of service.
Yeah, they should definitely take some of the load. That's for sure. 100%. But we'll just ask, by the way, there are some people watching, surprisingly, mad fools. Type in the comments what your love language is. I think we had someone earlier on saying that their love language was acts of service. I should say, what acts of service do you perform for your partner that lets them know that you love them?
Or what would they want their partner to perform to make them know that they love them?
Exactly. Try and keep it reasonably clean, although we're all adults here, aren't we? We'll get put in Facebook jail if we're too explicit. But
when we are talking about cereal, and I suppose anyone that this is their first love language live, cereal refers to sex and that realm. That is going to cross over to physical touch, this acts of service and physical touch.
Yeah. So are you chickening out of the cereal stuff now? We're leaving that for physical touch.
Mainly for physical touch. However, depending on how sexualized your relationship is, or if there are these fantasies that you like playing out, I mean real role play, it can creep into this.
Okay. So if your partner wants you to perform an act of service on them, then you should probably do that, shouldn't you? So long as it doesn't scare the horses.
Yeah, because scaring the horses isn't going to help anyone. But more if it's something your partner really likes in terms of getting into this is coming off the top of my head, a Superman role, and you really want to play out this act. I don't know. Could be Santa and the elves. Help me out, Pete.
Yeah. Well, all I would say is just make sure it doesn't involve the horses.
No horses.
No, I don't think you could be. We could be a knight in shining armor, although I'd imagine you'd need a set of keys. Otherwise, performing any type of service would be difficult. Although there are chastity belts that involve keys and things, so I'm told. Don't know, but it's the important. I think we're going to start digging if we're not careful, aren't we? But that's okay. But that's all right. But
that's all right. The idea of unicorns came in my head then. But whatever it could be.
Just making a note of that. Yes.
Act of service, yeah. Whatever it might be, and that would go into when we talk about the two dialects, that would go into putting more planning and time and effort into the act of service, whereas doing chores doesn't require that much time. So when you have worked out that your partner love languages of acts of service, work out what dialect in terms of what type of effort and time frame need to be in here, because that too is something that can totally be missed. I think Chapman, who wrote this book, when he went round talking to couples, found that rarely two couples had the same love language of acts of service, but they were still not reaching each other because they were doing the wrong acts of service. Someone really, really felt appreciated by all these little small chores, and someone else really liked the whole idea of cooking and putting on a movie night.
Yeah, that could be very awkward if you go to the trouble of buying the Superman suit, putting it on, come home, and all she wanted was a cup of tea. Wah, wah, wah.
All she wanted was a Superman book, which would go to gifts. But anyway, so I think that some of the tips for someone who has the love language of acts of service is, again, it is communicating, but telling your partner why it's important that you like something, especially if it's chores, because that can come under criticism. But if they understand that it makes you feel appreciated, you grew up watching it, you feel like a team, then it's easier for someone to understand why you like them to do certain tasks. And also doing tasks yourself, not just here, you do all of these because I would love you to. Because through understanding, then you're not going to do this act for them and scoff about it. Because as we've mentioned before, doing something and scoffing and in negativity, dragging your heels in, while you've got the rubbish over your shoulder, it totally eliminates any love being shown. Actually, it does the opposite.
Yeah, just cursing her under your breath as you're taking it out or washing the car.
There you are. There's my love.
But you could mow the lawn, and that's not a euphemism. You could do something, couldn't you, like that? We should probably put mowing the lawn in the vocabulary. And I'll mention this to people that are watching on Facebook, and I'll post the link. As we're doing these, there are things that you're not allowed to say. Otherwise, you get put in the Facebook and the YouTube jail. So we have produced an ever-growing list of vocabulary, which I'll share in the link, in a link below the video, wherever it happens to be posted. But that's true. I think it's down to communication, and it's probably also down to the person recognizing themselves why they like it. For instance, the so-called lazy guy that just sits there and waits for his wife or girlfriend to make dinner, he probably doesn't realize himself what the significance is, because I don't think many people realize how deep this stuff goes back to childhood.
Absolutely. Like we said, we often model what we saw as a child. We model that, and it's almost learnt behavior. So looking and asking what the setup was in your partner's life growing up, asking yourself.
So what in your childhood made you into a total cow?
What in your childhood made you unable to do any type of chores around the house? Yeah, so maybe not with a negative, but asking, what was the role of your mother? What was the role of your father? How do you feel about that?
And here's a tip that I learned. It's actually dealing with Japanese people, but I think it's got some validity here, and that's always phrase a question so that people can answer in the affirmative. So something like, would I be right in assuming that perhaps when you were a child, you accepted love from your parents by your mother cooking food? Then they can say yes, rather than, didn't you ever have to cook your own food? No. And you get in a row about it. Phrasing things in the positive. But also even saying, you've mentioned before that your mother did all the cooking in the family. What was that like? How did that feel? Opening it up even more. What did your father do? Was that normal to you? How did you feel about it? And then you're really understanding what the norm was in their family, and how your partner feels about it. Yes, because your normal isn't necessarily someone else's normal, is it? Normal's not universal. Right. No. So to summarize then, because I think we're probably, how long have we been going? Oh God, no, I don't even know what day it is.
Nearly 20 minutes. We really can ramble. But I think that's when cereal comes in.
Cereal, yes. So summarize it. I like this one, by the way. So if you get nagged, look for clues. Is that right? So look for the clues in the nagging. When the finger starts wagging and she start nagging, look for clues.
I like that. Look for clues and ask why it's important.
Right. So understand why.
To determine if it's the feeling of being part of a team, that we're all doing things together, would give you a clue that acts of service is important to that person. Could be a primary or secondary love language.
Could be, yes. Well, I think we've covered most of the stuff. Just have a look in the comments. Chris says Rustler Burgers to the rescue. I'm not sure whether that was part of the sexual fantasy bit or whether that was part of getting dinner. Chris may want to
I think
elaborate.
that might have been for your friend who can't use the microwave.
Could be. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but we're not here to judge. We're not here to judge. Whatever does it for you.
Whoever likes Rustler's Burgers.
Yeah, everyone likes a good burger, don't they? And I think that's about it. With not too many comments since we were late starting, but next time
we're late starting. But another tip that you could do is write down the acts that you enjoy doing for your partner, and then write down 4 acts that you like your partner to do that make you feel appreciated. Easy.
Exactly. Now wash your hands. Exactly.
Maybe keep it to 2 or 3.
Yes. Yeah. Could be a long weekend. Right. With that, I think we're done. Unless you have anything to add, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and chilling out. And what we're doing next week? Yeah, that's okay. You know, we didn't sell many tickets. People can ring up and ask for the money back they haven't paid. What we're doing next week?
So next week we're going to quality time.
Quality time. Okay, and I'll do my very best not to keep that clean as well. All right. Lots of love to everybody. Talk to you again soon. Love each other. Bye for now.